Oh, welcome back, everyone, to Get the Mic. We're just going to ignore that ever happened. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And this is the show where we dissect fiction in a mythological fashion. Welcome, John. Welcome, Brok the Warlock, who is
Thank
sitting
you.
next to me already. Just want to say welcome to everyone. Before we get started, I think this is a surprise, right? I mean, we did say one random day of the week though, so I guess it shouldn't be too surprising that we're streaming.
Not too surprising.
So we will say that we're trying to expand some of our formats. So we may or may not be streaming in the same fashion that we have, but we'll get to that as we arrive at it.
Mm-hmm. We have intentions to pre-record some of these episodes so that we can sort of break out of our normal upload schedule and get more stuff done.
Yeah, and do some more like one-off videos, like myth and movies, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't think we have anything else to get started on. But today we are talking about Dragon Ball as usual. And in particular, this first episode we're covering is called The Flying Fortress Vanished!
Exclamation point.
And so let's go ahead and get into it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it starts off with kind of a recap of what happened at the end of Wedding Plans, and what happens is the Red Ribbon Army's malice is enough to blind the societal father that is the Ox King in his quest to get the Dragon Ball, who is currently possessed, or which is currently possessed by Pilaf. Now, there's a couple of things I like about not just the recap, but the name of the episode and kind of how this is laid out, because it covers the important parts of what we need to remember for this coming episode, and that is Pilaf's ineffectual nature. He had to crawl inside the dragon, for example, like we just saw, to get the force.
Yeah, he couldn't fry it on his own, right?
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but we also see how his mode of being flees before the malice of the Red Ribbon Army. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We also see that as I said just a second ago, the societal father, the Ox King, is blinded by the Red Ribbon Army as well.
And in his blindness, he loses the Dragon Ball to Pilaf.
Well, the Ox King never actually had it though.
Right.
It was the bird.
Well, you know, he had conquered the chaos, right? He was the benefactor of it, you could say. He just hadn't, become aware that he even had it. And so I think that's kind of an aspect of that blindness where it's like, while he's under attack by the Red Ribbon Army and is blinded, he doesn't know and he can't see to protect this thing that he has, right? And it's interrupting the wedding. It's interrupting the feast because it's like, it's
fair enough. I just don't know if it's a...
What I would say is a circumstance like that would allow the, you could say the petty thief archetype, sort of that we're getting out of Pilaf, that adversarial, immature spirit. It can allow it to run away with the Dragon Ball, you could say.
I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
So the blindness of the societal father is such by the Red Ribbon Army that Pilaf is able to steal it.
Right.
I think that's significant to point out. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that them interrupting the wedding is kind of representative of that, like not letting him actually have it, not allowing him to actually seize that. Because if he ate the feast, he would have found it, right?
Not only that, yeah, and Pilaf wouldn't have been able to get it in the first place. But
Exactly.
not only that, but that sustenance that the feast provides, right, is also missing from the societal father. Not the feast, I meant the wedding. The nourishment that the societal father gains from the marriage of the masculine and the feminine hasn't been substantiated yet, and so he's unable to ward off this attack as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
And so we have Vanished, the flying fortress in the sky, and we've briefly spoken about what this fortress represents and Pilaf, how Pilaf handles it, let's say. It's very similar to his castle on the ground, except a little less tangible, and it's kind of less substantial even than that part of it.
Yeah, it really plays into what we've seen from Pilaf so far too, where it's like he technically gets his hands on the Dragon Ball and he's rushing to run hide inside his ego again. It's like, because I was talking about he needs to have it like he can escape into it and have an elevated position that, how would I say, protects him from judgment, And so as soon as he gets his hands on it, he knows he didn't get it through honest means, so he has to run away and hide himself within his sort of self-image, like, oh, I deserve this thing, and we'll see that throughout this episode how much he thinks he deserves it all the way up until the end.
Yes. And I think that's a good spot that we can transition.
Yeah.
So the next thing we see is Goku and Chi-Chi. They are going to confront this happening back in the village, right? And they're still trying to fly back on the Nimbus. They run into both the Flying Fortress and the Red Ribbon Army, who knock them kind of off balance there, right? And it's significant to say that it's not the huge flying fortress that knocks them off the cloud. It kind of does, but Goku, as you can see here, Goku's able to easily kind of bounce back from that, pull them back up, all that stuff. But the Red Ribbon Army's plane is the one that knocks them over and reveals Goku's weakness, let's say, or naivety, even, because he hasn't really faced an adversarial spirit like this at this point.
Yeah, I like that we get an immediate sort of comparison between the intensity of the two modes, right? Because what we're seeing is, and we're having this challenge for Goku that he's not the only one that can navigate in this way throughout the world. That other modes of being are not only sufficient to move in the way that he can, but can be devastating to him. They knock him off balance, right? They shock him that people could even operate with the efficiency that he has, right?
Yes. Go on.
That's all I had to say.
Oh, okay. And so,
Well,
sorry, I was trying to look at chat. Trying not to get distracted with it, but it's very distracting. So also the fact that I think there's a clip in here of Chi-Chi being worried about her father. Oh, here's the clip of them falling off and her grabbing Goku's tail, right?
right, which only happens after the Red Ribbon Army blows by them, right?
And so there's a chase ensued, right? The Red Ribbon Army plane with Colonel Silver, let's say, is chasing out after Pilaf, and Goku and Chi-Chi are going back to the village. They are kind of taking a side path from it because that priority is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even here, it's Chi-Chi says, "What happened? Don't tell me, father." Something like that.
Yeah, they're trying to catch up with what exactly is going on.
And so, during the chase, we have a great fog surround the castle in the sky, the flying fortress.
Mm-hmm.
And that fog, you could say, is that obfuscation that the foolish adversary is actually pretty good at that obfuscation. It's one of their hallmark strengths. And so hiding in the obfuscation of the fog, right? Hiding the projection of yourself, this castle in the clouds, in the fog, is such that it can work to your benefit, as we see he kind of gets the upper hand on Silver for a minute.
Yeah, it's something that Pilaf has learned to do by staying in this mode of being for such a long time now, right? Because we've seen that he's doubled down in hiding from himself, hiding his true nature from people, trying to escape up into the clouds, out of view. And this is just another extension of it. It's something that he's developed as part of his character now. He's very good at just completely hiding himself, making himself unknown. It's like retreating into his shell.
Hmm. Hiding in the unknown, hiding, and even too hiding the ball, right? Hiding this
Hmm.
piece of the chaos that can be incorporated. I know, that can be incorporated, right, in the fog is additionally that adversarial, selfish, foolish adversarial spirit. Let's say.
Well, looks like we might be down.
Are we down?
Let me
Down,
try
down.
refreshing it.
We want
And
to.
okay, I think we're good. That was odd.
Okay. So a couple of important things to point out here. Silver calls Pilaf an adversary of no real significance, no real remark, something like that.
No real importance, I think he says.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Pilaf is the foolish adversary incarnate, and in fact, he laughs to say how genius he is for hiding in the fog and that they'll never find him, right? And that he knows what a Dragon Ball is because he's held one before. Shu remarks,
Hmm.
how did you get fooled then by the shopkeep, right? And so it's again that masculine logos inspired spirit in Shu that speaks the truth to Pilaf, who Pilaf never listens to and abuses, and in fact he hits him over the head
Hmm.
when Shu says that to him.
Right. Well, Shu has that judge aspect to him, right? That's a disconnected masculine voice in a sense.
Yes. And so they're in the fog. They're trying to get away, and in the meantime, we see Goku and Chi Chi return to the village. They square up with the soldiers and kind of, kick them out of the village, kick their asses,
Hmm.
chase them back to the plains, and chase them out of the village and free the Ox King. Right?
Well, I want
And
to
that.
point out that
Oh, okay.
that
Go ahead.
it's Chi Chi that downs most of the soldiers here. She just goes off. I really wish that I could place sort of a symbolic analysis of Chi Chi's forehead laser and blade because it feels significant in for the same reasons that Ox King's adornments are significant. I just can't place it yet. But it's it just completely lays out all of the Red Ribbon Army soldiers and she says, "What are you doing in my garden?" whenever they arrive, right?
Hmm.
But it's more of that um I like that she calls it her garden because that's what they've done by blinding and binding up the societal father is they've encroached on that garden, right? That sort of walled uh would you say the paradisa, right? That they've created.
Yes, and I think what you're getting at too with the her head blade and helmet and her laser, which she uses right here, and yeah, it knocks them all. Um, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that laser is in its position for a specific reason. It's that illumination gained from gazing upon or interacting with the societal daughter, that which can bring out the best in men, let's say. And so it kind of knocks all of these pretenders, the red ribbon soldiers, on their ass. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it is, the third eye positioning of it and enlightenment and sort of how it can I mean, you say knock them on their ass, I think that's poignant because it really can humble men, right? And so I think the attack is sort of representative of that
And it
enlightenment.
doesn't really kill them, like they get away.
And it's similar to the blade attack we saw when she first used it against Roshi and the blade embedded in his head. It's sort of like that potential is not taken away even by what's happened to the Ox King, right? She's still powerful. She still has the ability to just clear out the soldiers and free him.
Yeah, exactly. And she also has the ability, as we saw before, to awaken the ancestral spirit to call him to action.
Mhm.
And so they free, as you can see here, they free Ox King, and the chase continues. I actually think they free Ox King, and then they have a talk, and they reveal that Goku reveals that he was never there, right? They
Mm-hmm.
start to think that, well, not they. Ox King starts to get suspicious about what's going on, right? Like asking questions and things, and here's that because the Red Ribbon soldiers get away here. I guess this is where he goes into the fog, or he was already in the fog. No, they
Well,
were
this
already in the
is
fog.
this is about where they're feeding Goku because he actually wasn't there for the wedding feast. So he's kind of getting his wedding feast now, and he's scarfing it down. And while they're talking about it, he mentions, well, maybe they were looking for the Dragon Ball, and Ox King's like, what do you mean? And so he kind of explains to him, oh yeah, that ball from before, that was a treasure of my grandpa's, and he's like, oh, I never imagined that it was of such importance, right? And so Goku, realizing that they must have been here looking for the ball, he pulls out the radar, sees that it's flying in the other direction, and then cuts his feasting short.
And right, also, well, we're gonna get to that in the next one. So before we get there, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because before we get there, Pilaf kind of gets the best of Silver in the fog and is able to use that what do I want to say, deceit, that illusion of the unknown to his advantage, and he overtakes Silver and is able to shoot down his plane.
Yeah, well, it's like Peterson says, don't hide things in the fog. That's sort of the thing that Pilaf is doing. He's hiding away. He's um hiding things in the fog, so to speak, not acknowledging his position in the hierarchy. And it works again. It's something that can work against Silver here.
Oh, and also the enlightenment here. So Silver is alerted to the position of the castle because the light it leaves behind, and it's to say I think that the light um is what pierces that illusion, right? And it's something that Silver is kind of approaching with truth here, and that's in a way how he's able to easily overcome Pilaf in the later part of this episode. But right now, Pilaf gets the better of him, shoots him down as the foolish adversary precedes the actual adversary as usual.
Hmm.
And then I think we do get to see what we were talking about with the Ox King and Goku eating and all of that stuff.
Hmm.
And I think it's important too to note that Chi-Chi in this scene also reveals that Goku was at the lake with her alone, right? In that reflective state together, considering the futures of their futures as husband and wife is what Chi-Chi says.
That's her interpretation, though. We see that he's asleep while she's talking about it, so he's still not conscious of what a wedding is.
Right. And so she says, "What about the wedding?" And he says, "We'll eat it later." All this, right? And he
Yeah.
goes off, and Chi-Chi's a little upset, as you might imagine. But it's Goku. That's how Goku is. And so he takes off. Actually, I want to be more specific about that. So, um, Goku's interpretation of a wedding is that it's nourishment for the Ox King, therefore it must be food, right? His vision of it is skewed at this point.
Well, it's great too that every time Goku comes around, they're immediately like, "Oh, it must be for a wedding." That the Ox King's interpretation of Goku coming around at all is that he's going to fulfill that purpose, right? Because that's what he ultimately is for the Ox King, right? So it's just wrapping it up and seeing him come and go as easily as that, and them to be. It almost makes it points out how silly it is that they even thought that, which that's one of those things that you'll see people say like, oh, Dragon Ball doesn't make that much sense, it's not very logical, and because of that, it's not necessarily logical that the Ox King keeps thinking that Goku, or the Ox King slash Chi Chi keep thinking that Goku's coming around for that purpose, right? Only really makes sense in the framework of him sort of fulfilling that role of the hero. But it's funny just to point it out as he comes and goes so flippantly and doesn't realize at all that uh, that step in his journey is right in front of him, because he can't yet become conscious of it.
Right, he's not at that stage yet still, even though it would nourish the societal father who obviously needs nourishment. He's trying to redeem for things that he's done in the past, right? Maybe tyrannical things that he's done in the past.
Mhm.
He even talks about that, how
Yeah.
whoever attacks him could be one of these people coming for revenge.
I really like that aspect of the Ox King where he says, if somebody comes at me, who am I to judge them for the things that I've done in the past? And it's sort of this more. I like that it's a more well-rounded representation of the societal father that way, in saying like this is a developed societal father character that's integrated the fact that you know he has represented positive and negative aspects throughout history.
Right, and to say that he's not judgmental of those who criticize him is a big step. What?
I'm just realizing chat's not working in the chat box.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We're just gonna continue. I turned it off because it was kind of just messing up. And we have like no viewers right now for some reason, just dropped off. But anyways,
Mhm.
back to what we were saying.
Even though it says excellent connection, yeah.
I have no clue. So Goku leaves, and we get to see briefly the flight squadron that Silver has assembled to take out the castle in the clouds. And the next thing we see is Goku goes off to find the ball. He has to take a piss. He goes down into the desert and pisses right on the camera. You have an analysis of this? Is this just funny?
This part I think is just funny. It reminds me of that. It's like Pilaf is in the desert again. He's underneath the desert here where he's hiding because he is. I think he's underneath the desert here at this point, right?
Yes. Yes.
Before he takes off in his massive ship, and it's it's almost a reflection of their last interaction, right? Where Pilaf has holed up in the desert again, and here comes Goku, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going to trap Goku again," and he comes wandering up. He's like, "Oh no, we're found out," and still Goku doesn't take Pilaf seriously at all in any way. The first thing that he does is immediately piss on what Pilaf has set up. That's
Yes.
the first thing that we see, and
Yeah,
it's
and that's
pretty
just,
harsh towards Pilaf.
that's to
as
say it's
that.
not necessarily just funny, but it is to say that Goku's mode of being in judgment of those who hide underground is you're worthy of being pissed upon.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily like a deep analysis as much as it's just a microcosm of what we're seeing happen to Pilaf throughout this episode.
Yeah.
Because it feels like the whole purpose of these past two episodes is to really set the score with Pilaf and prove that like that's not what a real adversary is. And so at every turn here, we're seeing that everyone involved is above the games that Pilaf's trying to play.
Right, and it kind of foreshadows how contentious the spirits are within this episode. The three spirits that are in contention, how far above Goku and the Red Ribbon Army are compared to Pilaf's pathetic, uh, piss-worthy
Yeah.
significance. So then they all, or Goku, I think, falls through and he gets inside the castle again. It's very similar to how it looked in the last instance we saw the castle. In fact, he puts some guards to sleep because obviously their spirits wouldn't be able to hold up against the castle made of ego itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's he releases turrets on the Red Ribbon Army as they go overhead, and Goku is inside, trapped by the same traps as in season 1, but now he's alone.
Right. They try two different things on Goku, and neither of those work. Trying to see what this covers. So he can't hold Goku at all. He runs through the barriers that he drops. I don't know if that happens yet, but and he tries to fight him with a robot,
Yeah, we see the robot right here.
and that doesn't work at all either. Goku just uses the Kamehameha, which Pilaf has never seen before.
Not formally, yeah. I mean, it's been around him, but he's never actually observed it.
What do you think of the Kamehameha wave against the robot that Pilaf brings sort of to crush him? He's like, "Oh, you're gonna die this time. Check this out." And he brings this robot out. Goku's like, "I don't have time for this."
Well, I think it's to say not only the truth of Pilaf's own ineffectual power, but it's also to say that the truth of it is going to be superior to this technological instantiation of one's ego, which is what the robot is for Pilaf. And
Mm-hmm.
so the truth that Goku's spirit is more enduring than the spirit that gave life to the robot is baffling and instantaneous, and it instantly crushes the
Yeah,
robot.
it's like the matter of the fact, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And so the robot's gone, and yeah, here's where I think he ran through some of those barriers, which in season 1 actually gave him pause. If you remember,
Mm-hmm.
he had to use that. So it's an elevation. We've seen Goku's using the ideas that he's learned in the tournament about the respecting of the hierarchy to be able to further his adventure through this castle. And so, let's say the ego being at the top of the hierarchy, the truth of that not being the case is another reason why the Kamehameha is so effective in this instance, and why Goku can basically bust out of the castle at will.
Yeah, whereas he was barely able to muster a Kamehameha last time that he could see through, basically. Make a hole he could see through and not even escape like that.
Yeah, just barely let some facsimiles escape
Mm-hmm.
to save the day. And so then Goku is able to get out as all of the Red Ribbon planes show up and start destroying the castle in the sky. It's easily overwhelmed as there are many more fighters than there are in the or many more fighters than there are guns or even personnel on the castle, right? It's just Pilaf and his 2 goons. It's
Yeah.
not enough to hold off the spirit that can captivate souls, such as the Red Ribbon Army has.
Yeah, this is a really big moment because up until now it's been kind of a fair fight. Like Pilaf has kind of got one up on them and it's very back and forth and it's, he gets away with his shenanigans. But this time, whenever he tries to run away like this, whenever he gets in his giant sort of spaceship version of his castle and tries to take off that way, as soon as he says run away, he is completely obliterated by the Red Ribbon Army. I mean, they completely
Annihilate
destroy
everything and blow it all
everything that
up.
he's
Yeah.
got.
And Goku gets blasted away as well. We don't know what happens to him. But this is where he chases after Pilaf out of the castle and everyone goes up. And also too, like that's the thing, him going up after the dropping of the bombs is what seals his fate. He gets surrounded immediately. And that's also, I think, to say that the foolish adversary at some point always has to be aware of all around them that there are real adversarial spirits that could take them out if they draw the attention of those spirits, and that's
Hmm.
exactly what Pilaf has done.
Yeah, well, it's almost like you can hide in the air, you can hide underground, but whenever you try to, this is him revealing himself, right? With this big, showy, grandiose ship coming up. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you how," and he says it explicitly. "I'll show you how dangerous I can really be," right?
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out of hiding, right? And as he reveals himself, he draws that attention and is found wanting, right?
Definitely. And so his ship blows up, and the last couple things we see are, whoa, is this what? I think these are out of order, actually. What the? Okay, this is definitely not in order. So we'll wrap up at that point.
Well, that's
Um,
basically all that happens, right?
yeah, that's really all that happens. We do see Pilaf and the gang get they do get out of the ship unscathed.
And he thinks he can hide himself in the smoke of the wreckage of the
Which
ship, right?
which is
As
so
they're parachuting down.
it's temporarily right, temporary, that it's weird that he would think that, right?
He's like, at least I'm not being seen right now. And then as he slowly descends, you get a nice shot seeing like all of the Red Ribbon armies just scattered, waiting for him on the ground.
Yes. And he knows the jig is up. He hands over the Dragon Ball, and in the next episode, we'll see what happens next, because this little mini arc of anime filler, quote unquote, because I think these episodes are quite good, actually, is coming to a close, and we're about to get back to the main story, where we're going to see the first real arc of the Red Ribbon Army, let's say.
Yeah, this little arc has kind of been a handing of the baton, right? Like we've said before, the foolish adversary preceding the actual malevolent.
It's why it
force
fits
of
in
the
so well, is
adversary.
because it is that spirit that endures, right?
Mm-hmm. So we're just getting that nice setup and an establishment of essentially what we're stepping into now. You know, we needed the context of Pilaf, and you know, you think about it, you see this giant explosion. It's like those Red Ribbon Army soldiers are dead. So we're
Oh, the ones that are inside, they got put to sleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
not there, and that's to show that the spirit of the adversary is okay sacrificing part of itself to achieve its goals, which is more terrifying than the foolish adversary,
which definitely won't.
typically not. Yeah. So we see all these things instantiated in this episode, and I think that's pretty much where we're gonna have to end. We can further analyze this whole thing in a well, yeah, I think we can analyze this full thing in the next episode when we kind of talk about the end of this part, and then we'll kind of wrap that up then and go on to the next one. So, if you like what you heard, please give us a subscribe, treat us with a like, and you know, I'm sorry chat was messed up, and this stream apparently just didn't stream well. Started to, and then just dropped off.
We might have been live. We might not have been. It looks
knows?
live to me.
At least I have it recorded. But anyways, if you liked what you heard, please do those things. Give our musicians some support there in the comments as well.
Yes, they've so graciously agreed to let us host their music on our show, and we really appreciate their work. So, you know, go over, give them a few listens, give them some likes, subscribe to them.
Yeah, please do. That's Lucas Gitano family and Rifty Beats. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brock.
And we hope you all have a good night.